All right. Part 2 of chapter 12 of the Isis Thesis, and we're just going to pick up where we left off at. Show you the pages until the end of the chapter. In case you want to screenshot real fast. The text reads, "When this God entereth, he riseth and putteth under restraint. Suggesting that the ape restrains the eater of the arm, or the arm is now rescued from Seth. This makes the eye complete and balances the arm of the lambda genome. This representation of Seth as a retreating pig from the tombs of Seti I and Ramesses VI suggests the impairment of hedgehog gene function, which is a massive developmental gene promoting limb formation in all known vertebrates. Our scientists originally named this gene hedgehog because the gene actually looked like one. The pharaohs were aware of the gene's shape, may have used the same strategy by drawing a pig, so we could decode this sign as the hedgehog gene. Seth as pig equals hedgehog gene. Allowing this gene to function would result in matter or human creation, the weight of which would imbalance the scale. Eating or absorbing the arm, in this case, suggests the binding of the polymerase to the operator sequence, which results in the activation of the hedgehog gene. This terminology for binding has also been used relative to the son eating or absorbing the father. Chemical bonding and DNA degradation. Idea strand 100. Eat eye of Horus. King eats or absorbs eye. King swallows intelligence of God. King swallow 7 ure. Embrace of Father Atum. Enclose king in embrace. Protein synthesis is the process of DNA encoding amino acids and proteins. During protein translation, complexes of amino acids linked to tRNA bind to the codons in mRNA and form base pairs. The binding or molecular control of a chemical reaction can be described as absorbing, swallowing, embracing, or eating another molecule. When the deceased king swallows 7 ure, metasymbol for phage lambda 7 operons, this means that the supramolecular king controls the modes of growth inside the host cell. Likewise, the field of offering suggests that the chemical arena where the binding reaction occurs. The idea of the son swallowing the father can now be understood in Pyramid Texts 273 and 274. The text states the sky is overcast, the stars dark, the planets stilled, as the king appears in power. The passage states the king lives on his fathers and feeds on his mothers. The king is mightier than his father, Atum. He eats men and lives on the gods. Also, these texts portray the king as gulping down spirits, eating their magic. For the king is the oldest god. He receives his power, his warrant from Orion, father of the god, an emphasis on the source of his element. Thus, the king absorbs the power of his father in an act of consumption or eating, that is, chemical bonding. Similarly, when merging with the sun god, the deceased claims, "I have eaten my father and am alive." In this text, the deceased states, "I eat the gods, I kill him who I made to live. I bind him whom I loosed. The pharaohs represented the deceased chemically bonding and absorbing the power of his father, the sun god, as an act of consumption or eating. Likewise, the ancient mythological motif of sacred kingship, or the young king replacing the old king, also points to the process of absorption in the bonding of RNA polymerase, or the son or copy of DNA template, to the DNA molecule, which is father. The deceased is the sacred king, for he has died to the human parts of him, old DNA template, due to some debility, which is death, and now his power passes to his successor, the newly risen king, or DNA template. DNA degradation is an analogous process to absorption, consumption, or eating. The cell must control protein levels, so it reduces the steady state level of a particular protein by proteolytic degradation, the breaking down of DNA into smaller fragments by chemical or physical means. A cell undergoing an SOS response reacts by an increased rate of proteolysis to salvage amino acids from non-essential proteins. Along with this regulation of integrase and excites genes of phage lambda depends on RNA degradation. The corruption of Osiris also refers to the degradation, references this process of DNA degradation. Decoded: eating, absorbing, embracing equals chemical bonding. Field of offering equals nutrient area where binding reaction occurs. Corruption or degradation of Osiris equals DNA degradation. The efflux of Osiris. Idea strand 53. Efflux missing from left eye due to full power of Osiris. Osiris cut up has no efflux but risen. Osiris has efflux or flood. Dead king has water, flood from two Anids. Eyes. Deceased receives Seth's water. Dead king is fresh water. Flood from Osiris. Dead king has a flux and is not inert. From the idea strands, it is obvious that Osiris risen, or the lambda prophet Isis, has efflux, water, and flooded from the whole eye of Horus, and is not inert, whereas Seth no longer has water or efflux. Bacteria protect themselves from toxic agents leaking through the cell membrane by transporting molecules back to the extracellular space in a process known as efflux. Efflux pumps for this purpose are made of proteins and located in the cell membrane to transport molecules out of the cell. In the case of rising Osiris, or the excision lambda prophet, the flood of water, efflux or outflow, indicates the release of the transportation of phage progeny out of the cell into the extracellular space. Thus, the following meta symbols referring to the deceased, who is Osiris and Horus, suggest the process of efflux, flood in the dead king's lap. Cool water, the great flood issuing from the dead king. Flood from two Anids, eye of Seth and the eye of Horus. Efflux of Osiris. It is interesting that Seth's great flood is enclosed and missing from the left eye, suggesting that the efflux of Seth's generating the human creation does not occur due to the full operation of both lambda arms activating the lytic pathway. So decoded, we have now flood, water, and inundation, I'm sorry, equals process of efflux in bacteria cell. Okay, all right. So objective 7 is completed. The deceased sun god restores the Eye of Horus by activating the lytic lifestyle in the whole cell and restoring the rightful order of the operator sequences on the lambda genome for crow protein production. And all interrelated matrices are still coherent and unified. So, once again, I say peace, kings. Peace, Queens. When we pick up again, it'll be chapter 13.